Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome. Today, I would like to share with you guys this crazy, mind blowing trap that I found last night in the Sicilian Nador main line. This trap is just so crazy and mind blowing. And, I spent all last night and like a couple hours today just like looking into it and studying it with the variations. And I even got one of my friends, uh, who's a national master, to play the line against. We agreed to play the Sicilian Nadorf, um, and I ended up beating him with it, with this novelty move. Um, this move is just crazy. Like at first, it looks so bad for white, but the win rate is insane. If you look at the opening database, white has a 80% win rate when this move is played in the Sicilian Nadorf mainline. It's only been played 300 times out of 56,000 times when the position has been reached. So the move is completely unknown. I looked online, I looked on YouTube, I tried searching, for stuff on Lichess and chess.com. I couldn't find anything about this trap. So I'm pretty sure this is a new trap. This is like, well, not a new trap, but like a very unknown trap. And I want to share it with you guys because this trap is just insane. So I have this study that I spent last night and a bit of today working on. I'll link the study in the description if you want to read it. I'm pretty much going to be going through this study. But if you want to look at it on yourself, you can have that. You can just look at it by yourself. Click the link in the description. So we're going to start off. This is in the Nador mainline. So e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, c cross d4, knight cross d4, knight f6, knight c3, and a6 with the Nadorf. So white has a lot of different responses they can play on this move, but I personally think bishop g5 is one of the most sound, also one of the most aggressive responses. I played bishop c4 on this move in this position for probably like 3 or 4 years, and I scored really terribly. I would always lose my games in the Nadorf, and I thought it was because, I didn't know how to play it. I didn't know how to play the Nadorf, but now I think it's just because bishop c4 is not that great of a move, which is the Fischer-Sozin variation. So I would definitely recommend bishop g5. I think it's the most aggressive. And then just the main line continues e6 and f4. So the reason why you develop your bishop is so you can play f4, or at least you don't want to play f4 until you've developed your bishop. So now that we have developed our bishop, we can play f4. And then these are going to be the main ideas for white in the middle game. This isn't really related to the trap. This is just kind of some basic Nadorf 3. You're not going to get the trap every time you play the Nadorf, because we're only on move 7. The trap happens on move 10. You could still deviate before then. So you want to know some of these ideas just in case you don't get the trap, or if your opponent plays the safe refutation of the trap, which I'm going to be going over later. So yeah, these are the ideas. You want to bring your queen to f3, your bishop probably to e2 or d3, and you want to castle kingside and expand and attack with your pawns on the kingside. A lot of times you end up trading this bishop for this knight, and you just want to storm the kingside with your pawns. Also, this move, king b1, so after you castle queenside, king b1 is a really nice prophylactic move because you want to get your king off of this half-open c-file. This c1 to h6 diagonal is also really weak, and you don't want your king getting forked somehow on this diagonal in like the middle game or the end game. And also, you're just over defending a2. So king b1 is a really nice move for those three reasons. And you want to look to try to play a lot of these types of moves in the middle game, the Nador. So bishop e7 is the main line. Black does have a couple other moves here. You can play h6 or queen b6, which is the poison pawn variation. Queen b6 is much more popular at the master level, but bishop e7 is also played at all levels. Bishop e7 is by far the most popular move at the club and amateur level. So then we're going to continue with our plan, queen f3. And here, black really only has two moves. He plays either knight bd7 and then queen c7, or he plays queen c7 and then knight bd7. Sometimes black will throw in this move h6. If that happens, you know, we're not going to get into our trap, so you can back the bishop up, you can trade the bishop, and you know, just continue with those plans that I've just briefly gone over. And if you want to, I would also recommend reading a little bit more on the Nador theory, so that you have a really good idea what to do if you don't get this trap, because you're not going to get this trap every time. It will take a bit of luck just to get to the trap. But anyway, I've highlighted this move castles here because I think castling for black is an inaccuracy, because the kingside pawn storm is just going to be too strong for white. It's going to be too tough for black to defend in time. So if black castles kingside here, which I would not recommend if you're playing this as black, I wouldn't recommend castling kingside. I would just try to storm your pawns on the kingside as fast as possible. Castle queenside still, obviously. We're actually going to castle queenside no matter what black does here. But if black does castle kingside here, first castle queenside and then get your pawns going as soon as you can. But the main line continues queen c7, we castle kingside, and then there's this move here, which is b5, and this move b5 is actually the second most popular move. It's been played 9,000 times out of 59,000 times, so around 15% of the time, and it's actually a huge blunder. So right now, if we turn on the engine will say that this position is completely equal. It's like 0.0. But after b5, the engine goes to like plus 2.8. So it's completely winning for white. And the reason is after b5, you play this move e5. And you're hitting both the knight and also the rook. Discovered attack. Black does have this move bishop b7, but you still end up getting a really strong attack as white, and on a lot of lines, you also win material. I think you actually win at least a pawn in every single line after b5 and e5. So you can check that out in the study. If you want to look more into that, it's chapter 2. But for now, for this video, I don't want to make the video too long, so I'm not going to go over that. You can check that out yourself if you want. The main trap starts after knight db7, or excuse me, knight bd7. And here, the main two moves for white are g4 or bishop d3. And those are basically the only two moves that white plays in this position. But here, I'm recommending a novelty, and this is where the trap starts. This is the mind-blowing move right here, which is Rook d2. And you're thinking like, okay, how is this a mind-blowing trap? Like, you just moved your rook up one, you're not even attacking anything, you didn't even change anything about the position. Well, the main idea of Rook d2, I think, is in a lot of lines, you're defending c2 from checkmate, you know, when this knight moves and this knight moves, so it's no longer defending. So the rook can't come to c8, and you're just protecting from any possible mating ideas that black might have in the middle game. You also free up this d1 square for your knight, which may be useful later if black pushes like b5, which happens in a lot of lines, and your knight can't come to a4. So I think those are the main two ideas of this move, rook d2. And also, we're kind of just waiting. We're waiting for black to play this move, b5. Because here, if black plays b5, there's only one single line. Black has to play perfectly for like the next, black has to play extremely perfectly for the next couple moves, which might not sound too difficult, but the moves we're going to be playing, it will be extremely difficult for black to play perfectly. So let me just get to the next chapter here. Anyway, yes. So rook d2. Rook d2. Here, there's really only two moves that black has tried. Black's tried b5, which goes into the trap, which I'm about to show. And then black has also tried h6, which if we go here, h6, yep. This is probably the most solid approach. It's not actually the best for black because black has a better way of refuting, but it's definitely the safest. Play h6, get rid of this bishop right away, and our trap, which I'm about to show you, is no longer going to work because we need this bishop on g5 for our trap later. So if black plays this move, which it's the second most common move, so if we look at the move counts here, b5 was played 209 times, h6 only been played 79 times, and then there's a couple secondary moves, but they've rarely been played. So b5 and h6 are really the only two moves here. If black plays h6 in this position, I would definitely recommend taking this knight, and then black can take back with the knight or the bishop. He's not going to take back with the pawn. I personally think black taking back with the bishop is going to be more likely because this kind of goes more, it aligns more with the Nador theory. And if this happens, white should play h4 and like bishop e2 and king b1 and just continue with his main Nador plans. And if black captures with the knight, which is also possible, you want to play, in this position, you want to play bishop d3 to support your weak e4 pawn. And here you want to continue with like g4 and g5, or g4 and f5. And basically just expand on the king side. And, black is probably slightly better here, but, white has some amazing attacking opportunities on the king side. So, this is basically an equal game if black goes for this move h6. But now, the moment you've all been waiting for, you've been waiting the last 13 minutes for me to finally get to this. The main trap, which is b5. And this is the best move for black. This is the best move for black. But, like I said, black has to play extremely accurately to maintain his advantage. And if we just look at the win percentage here, this position has occurred in 209 games. And even though the engine evaluation in this position is minus 1.6, white has won 80% of the games, which is just crazy. Like, white winning 80% of games over the course of 200 games, that's a lot of games in a position that's minus 1.6. That's just insane. So here, the trap starts after the move e5. And if you're black, well, first let me change chapters so I have all the moves. Here we go. Right. Trap starts after e5. So if you're black, your knight's threatened, your rook's threatened. There's only one move to save both. It's bishop b7 counterattacking the queen. And you might think, okay, we move the queen to g3, and we trade, and maybe we're picking up this g pawn. No, that's not it. That's not the trap. The trap starts after e cross f6. And like this queen sacrifice is just insane to me. I was going crazy for like 10 minutes when I found this line last night. I'm still like completely dumbfounded by this line. So, Black has actually tried two different moves here. In around 10% of the games, Black has refused the queen sacrifice with g cross f6, which it's actually a huge blunder, and White is just completely winning after queen h5 in that line. If you want to look into that line more, I've highlighted it in the study. You can take a look at it yourself. But the main thing we're going to be looking at is accepting the queen sacrifice, which has happened in the majority of the games, 90% of the games. And here we don't recapture the bishop. We don't recapture the bishop with the pawn. We don't recapture the bishop with the knight. We take the bishop on e7, and now this pawn on e7 is a monster. Restricting the king. The king has no squares. The king has absolutely no squares, and you might already see kind of the ideas of the trap lining up. If you don't, our main idea is we want to get a knight to d6. Imagine if we have a knight on d6 and there's nothing guarding d6, that would be checkmate. Right now, the only thing guarding d6 is the queen. So if we got a knight to d6, Black would have to sack the queen. We would regain the queen with our rook because our rook defends d6. So here, 7 moves have been tried. 2 of them are much, much more popular than any of the other ones, and neither of the 2 most popular moves are correct. So the 2 most popular moves are bishop b7. So, you're just saving your bishop. That's basically the idea. And here's where the trap comes in. So we're going to continue with our main idea. We're going to sack our knight on b5. So we're forking the queen and this weak d6 spot. If Black takes, we don't care. We're going to take back. And this is the idea of the trap. This trap is basically we want to get our knight to d6 no matter at what cost, because our rook's going to be defending d6, and Black is basically going to have to sack the queen back. And, we already gained 2 pieces. We're just going to be up a couple pawns. Black gained 2 pieces too, because he's gonna get our knight back when he sacks the queen, and he already took our knight on f3. So he's gonna get his pieces back, but White's just gonna be up a ton of pawns. So in this position, there's a fork. When you move the queen, you're gonna drop d6, and you're gonna have to sack the queen anyway. The best move here is queen c6. And we just win our queen back. And here, a common blunder that's been played is Rook takes a2. So this is already just completely winning for White. F6 has been tried, which is probably the best try. But White has these 3 connected passed pawns. The bishop pair. Black's king is going to be stuck in the center, and it's just completely winning for White. But Rook takes a2 is a funny blunder that Black has played, and after this, Black is just completely losing after bishop b5, and you have to bring the bishop to c8 to stop the checkmate threat, and now we bring our rook to c6, attacking the bishop. Black has to bring his rook back to defend, and now we attack the knight one more time, and there's nothing Black can do to defend this knight. You can't go rook a7 because you drop the bishop. So here the best move according to the engine is f6, And now we can do this nice remove the defender tactic and line up some discoveries. There's no time to take the bishop. Here the best move is Rook c5, and now we're just going to be winning this exchange. Winning this exchange again after Rook b7 check. And you still can't take the bishop, because if you take the bishop, then you get skewered. And obviously this is the easiest endgame in the world for white. So you have to take this pawn, and white backs up the bishop, and you know, this endgame, white's up a piece and has the 2 connected passed pawns. It's the easiest endgame in the world. So this trap is just incredible. You know, this trap is just incredible. I want to go back to the main position right after the queen sack, and check out a few other moves just to show you the ideas. So first I want to look at this bishop c6 move. So the idea here is that you want to stop white from sacking a knight on b5. I think that's the idea. So we can't take here with the knight immediately, because if we take twice with the knight, we're going to lose both our knights. We're never going to get our knight to c6. So here, first you have to take with the bishop. And now if black captures with either piece, then we're going to get our same trap. We're going to get our knight to d6. So black can't take this with either piece. Black's best try here is knight b8. And then the line gets really complicated. But here the most common move is actually a takes b5 by a long shot, played in over 50% of games that have reached this position. And you know, now we just have our same trap. Like, there's nothing black can do. This is completely losing for black. So here the best move is rook a7. And we don't take the queen, because we can take d6 and win the queen like this. And then f6, bishop h4, king takes e7, and rook d1. And, you know, white's regained all his pieces that he sacked. He's up 2 pawns, got the 3 connected passed pawns. Black's king is stuck in the center. You know, this is going to be a great endgame for white. So that's bishop c6. Let me check out some other moves. You know, if black plays b4, you know, that doesn't really threaten anything. We just continue with our trap. A cross b5, knight cross b5, and we have the same thing here. So queen c6, knight cross d6, queen cross d6, rook cross d6, bishop d5, bishop b5, rook a7, and here the really nice move f5. And the longer you look at this position, the more you will realize how winning it is for white. This is a completely winning position for white. If you turn on the engine, it's like +6. So that's b4. Let's see some other moves. Here's kind of a critical move I want to look at, which is f6. So now our trap doesn't work because the king can actually run to f7. But now the e6 pawn is no longer defended. So this is still completely, it's not completely winning for white, but it's better for white. So here you want to play knight cross e6. Your bishop is hanging, but it doesn't matter because you're counterattacking the queen. Black plays queen to a5. Here you play g cross f3. You want to regain the bishop. And then here black has 2 moves. They can take the bishop, and if black takes the bishop, then bishop h3 is really strong. So one other try is king cross e7. And the idea is, okay, now 2 pieces are hanging, so, you know, first I'm going to win this pawn, then I'm going to win one of your pieces. But it doesn't actually work because of the move knight d4, so you're threatening a fork. And then once black moves the king, you can save the bishop. And here, white has 3 minor pieces for the queen. Pawns are equal, so it's kind of unclear. The engine gives this position as plus 1.6. But it's definitely very unclear. You know, black's king might look like it's it's not the safest, but it's kind of hard for white to attack black's king in this position from a practical standpoint. So black has b4 coming maybe and can activate his rooks on the c file. Like it's very unclear for sure. But if one thing is reassuring, f6 is not a very popular move. It's been played less than 5% of the time from this position. Yeah, 80% of the time you're going to get one of these moves, bishop c6 or bishop b7. I'm not going to go over bishop h5 or h6 because it's basically the same thing as these other moves that we've already looked at. It's basically the same as bishop b7 or b4. You're just going to sack your knights on b5. But I do want to look at this line, bishop d5, which is the refutation. So this is the correct refutation by black. And basically now if we try to sack our knight, our rook doesn't see the d6 pawn. So our trap doesn't actually work anymore. And here the best try for white is you definitely want to take this bishop and open up this e-file where hopefully we can hang on to this pawn maybe in some lines. Also, these pawns are just really weak. And also, when the e-pawn recaptures, you can bring your knight to f5. So a sample line might go like knight f5, f6, bishop h4, g6, knight e3, and you know, black is definitely better here. I'm not going to lie. Black is better here. White's got two minor pieces for the queen. He's got the bishop pair. Black's king is kind of stuck in the center. White might be regaining a couple pawns here and there, but you know, this is definitely better for black, but it's not over for white. It's not over for white yet. So that's the correct refutation. It's been played 13 out of around 13 out of 180 times. So what is that? That's like 8% or something. So the correct refutation, the correct move, the only correct move, bishop d5, being played 8% of the time, and blunder moves being played 80% of the time. This trap is just incredible, guys. I'm just really stunned. If you want to look at the other lines that I have highlighted in study, if you want to look at the study yourself, check that out in the description. I definitely, if you're, you know, obviously in a classical game, this trap is less likely to work. But I still think if you're under 1800, if your opponent is under 1800, this bishop d5 move is just really hard to spot unless you're like at least 2000 rated. Because you have to see this idea where you have the double knight sack and it's forking the queen and the d6 square, and the rook also sees d6 and the king has no escape. It's just really hard for people to find this move, bishop d5. It also just looks really terrible. You know, you're letting white open up the center when your king's in the center, and you know, you're giving yourself doubled pawns. It's just really hard to find. But if you're playing against a good player in a classical game, I'd say there's some chance they will find bishop d5. So I wouldn't recommend playing this unless you're okay with losing to bishop d5. Though, you know, that's the risk. That's the risk of playing these like really dubious lines. If they do blunder, they play a move like bishop b7, you're going to have a really, really nice and easy win. And, you know, I would recommend playing this at blitz and bullet at all levels. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, titled players fell for this trap in blitz and bullet. You know, grandmasters even. I wouldn't be surprised. So this Rook D2 move is just Rook D2 on move 10 is just so unknown. It's incredible. I don't think I have anything else to say, so thank you for watching, and make sure to give this video a like or a comment if you want me to check out any other trappy lines. Make sure to check out the study, and make sure to check out my Twitch stream. I'll link that in the description too. I stream a lot of chess on Twitch, a lot of instructive stuff too. So thank you all for watching.